The revolution is real, it's live, and as some comrades say, it's lit, right? lit, lit, lit. Real, live, lit, 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 right? The revolution is lit.
Uhuru comrades, and welcome to today's Omali Taught Me Sunday Study, live with the leader of the African nation, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. My name is Akilé Anai, the Director of Agitation and Propaganda for the African People's Socialist Party, as well as your MC. Today's episode is a special to raise funds for Black Power 96.3 FM Radio's annual July member drive to raise funds for the best radio station in the world and project of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. You can tune in to Black Power 96 FM radio in St. Petersburg, Florida from your car, or download the Black Power 96 radio app to listen live. The Omali Taught Me is a regular program on Black Power 96 radio, and Chairman Omali Yeshitela's quotes and speeches are regularly aired as part of our Black Power Hour and the Omali Minute. The Omali Taught Me show has a goal to raise $2,000 today towards the overall fund drive goal of $10,000 for the radio station. And we've done this in the past on Omali Taught Me show. Our viewers, our listeners, audience for this show has come through all the time when we've needed to raise funds. So we know we can do it again today. We're calling on you throughout the study to make a donation or your contribution or become a sustaining member at blackpower96.org/donate through Cash App at $blackpower96 or via mail to Black Power 96 located at 1245 18th Avenue South, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33705. And we'll talk about that again. We'll remind you on how you can donate. But again, throughout the study, you can go to blackpower96.org/donate, make a contribution, become a sustaining member, and help us reach our $2,000 goal this morning. Each of our donors will receive a give back to thank you for your contribution. And we'll also say what that is a little later on in the program. For today's study, I have the honor of interviewing our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, to talk about the crisis of colonialism, this dying social system, and how that has translated into escalated attacks against our movement and colonized people as a whole, fighting to be free of colonial domination. We'll begin this episode with opening remarks from our chairman before going into the interview, breaking for announcements and closing remarks. And as always, we call on you to spread the word and build the Omali Taught Me show by sharing this study far and wide, liking this video right now, subscribing to our YouTube channel, and commenting in the chat. Make sure you invite people to participate in this program. We are fully aware of the war being made on our right, not only to say what's in our interests, but for the people to have access to what we say as well. This also includes downloading the Black Power 96 mobile app to hear the dynamic presentations of Chairman Omali Yeshitela on the go. So thank you for taking this moment right now to like, to share, to comment, to tag other people into this discussion. And now we would like to get started and welcome our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela. And Chairman, any opening remarks before we begin our interview today?
I'd like to really express my appreciation to you, Comrade Director Akilé, for your participation in this meeting. As you know, I'm back in St. Petersburg, Florida right now, where you are located, where Black Power 96 is located. And of course, I'm in the home that was attacked by the federal government on July 29, 2022. In order to prevent us from having this and other kinds of discussion that contribute to the liberation of our people, and in order to block the capacity for African people to have independent discussions with each other, whether they are related to the party, the struggle against colonialism or not. So I'm happy to be here and to be with you. I also want to really express appreciation to comrade brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa, members of our party movement, supporters, and those of you who are in other places, Europe, throughout the Caribbean, that may have some difficulty accessing this discussion, this study, either because of the assault on the infrastructure that has been made by white power, by the colonizers, when they took our Africa and took us from Africa. In fact, if the truth be told, my presence here in St. Petersburg, Florida, represents a part of the assault that was made on Africa. So I'm glad to be able to talk to you. And I know that especially on the continent of Africa and in Europe to some extent as well, that we have not communicated, I have not communicated as effectively and often as I would have liked to. The fact is that we've had to concentrate a lot of energy and resources and organization to defending ourselves from and defending Africa from this location, from the assault that's being made on our movement with the July 29th, 2022 attack. And we have a trial coming up in September of this year that intends to put me, comrades Penny Hess and Jesse Neville in prison for 15 years for working for the liberation of our people. But despite the fact that I've been rather preoccupied personally trying to deal with this case and combating the efforts of the United States government to assault our revolution from this critical point in the world, that is to say, the United States, which is the hegemon that's controlled Africa and much of the world for the last few hundred years. I feel really good about the work that's happening on the continent of Africa and Europe as a consequence, because of the organization that we have created, the leadership, the cadre in those places throughout Africa that's carrying out the work beautifully. And I'm seeing meetings happen as they're supposed to happen, work being done as it's supposed to be done. And some of you who are here with us today are here as parts of groups who are participating in this study collectively, again, because of the lack of infrastructure, because of the fact that Europe and the US and the white world, the colonial world, sucks our resources and the infrastructure that should be there in places like Sierra Leone or Zambia or throughout the continent of Africa is located instead in New York and in Amsterdam and places like that. So I wanted to salute all of you and to say that I know that the work is going well despite these assaults that's being made on our movement. So we want to talk today about a number of things, and I'd just like to open up the discussion with saying that this whole social system is experiencing deep and profound crisis. When I say the social system, I'm talking about obviously colonialism, but I'm talking about more than colonialism as it has existed as a policy at different times in history, and even as Portugal attacked us some 600 years ago with the invasion of various parts of Africa, the Madeiras, where they initiated plantations and things like that, and ultimately where they began this process of forcibly taking Africans to various parts of the world, and taking Africa to various parts of the world. And so this has been, like a real fundamental kind of development in terms of the history of our struggle. But the fact is that we have been involved in fighting back. And as I said, when Portugal attacked Africa some 600 years ago, it forcibly dispersed Africa and Africans to various locations throughout the world, and has contributed to the development of the international global revolutionary project. At the same time, it was creating an entire different world system, world economy. And so at one time, when Portugal attacked us, it did so as a matter of Portuguese policy, or the policy of the Portuguese. And then it was a policy that other entities in what is now called Europe was able to see, brought tremendous amounts of wealth. And so it was something that was imitated by other entities, by forces who were in England and France and Belgium. All of these forces saw a way to get loot in a hurry that would enrich them, especially given the fact that we're coming out of 1,000-year-long poverty, deprivation in what is now called Europe, that Europeans were able to rescue themselves from through taking resources and taking land and people in the continent of Africa. And after a while, what was just a policy that was used by Portugal, or that was used by England, or used by Belgium or France, etc., became more than just a policy. We saw the emergence, as a consequence of this, we saw the emergence of a whole world economy that did not exist before. This is the emergence of a world economy, and I think it's extremely important for us to understand this. And this contributes to a scientific approach to understanding what our conditions and the conditions of the peoples of the world stem from, and how to deal with it. So now, as opposed to it being simply a policy of one entity, although entities may still have policies of colonial policies, we now have a colonial mode of production, a world that's connected together economically, increasingly politically, as a consequence of this new mode of production. This mode of production that we're talking about is the process through which human beings in all societies exercise the struggle to feed, clothe, and house themselves. It's the political economy that will initially would have been something that existed in fiefdoms in what is now called Europe. That's now it's an explosion of resources and development of what was now what had previously been little fiefdoms, little feudal fiefdoms in this territory, this arena called Europe. Now there's a world economy, and as it existed prior to the enslavement, the colonial enslavement of Africa and African people, as existed before the move of the Africans throughout the world to develop this world economy, this colonial empires, these colonial empires that we saw developing. Now the world is locked into one community, and the state that used to be a feudal state, that used to be just in these little fiefdoms. And the state, of course, as we know, is this entity, this a bureaucracy that has as its command jails, prisons, the court system, the military forces, the intelligence organizations. All of this constitutes a state. But prior to the colonial development of the colonial mode of production prior to what came to be recognized by many people. They defined this as imperialism, etc. This is a colonial mode of production that's exploded around the world. The whole world is locked into a single economy and what have you. And with this, then the state changed. The state changed, instead of it being just some local entity that's tied to fiefdoms in the territory that we now call Europe and England or France or Portugal or something like that. The state now is expanded, and it's expanded beyond just these local entities. And when we talk about the state being this bureaucracy, we talk about the state being this military capacity, the court systems, etc. And there emerges definitions of law. For example, England played a real big part in defining what has now been recognized as part of international law. And this process happens and is extended throughout the whole world. And so the state, the capitalist state, which is born from this process of bringing all these resources together, that led to the destruction, generally speaking, the destruction of the feudal structures. The feudal mode of production in Europe has now led to the development of a different kind of state, in the sense that not that it's less repressive, not that it's less coercive, not that it has a different function, but it has expanded tremendously beyond the limitations of what was defined previously as the territorial state. It's now an international state, and this is the basis for what comes to be known as what is now known as international law. And it took struggles and wars and all kinds of things to finally consolidate that. It took the attack on expansion and consolidation of the attack on Africa, 1894, 95, the Berlin Conference. This is part of the development of the legal structures of the colonial mode of production that spread Africans out to white people, white powers, etc. And there were laws that this was born of, laws that they initiated among themselves to regulate these relationships and what have you. And then these laws became to be ubiquitous, and they were iterations of the laws that they utilized then. And this is just one example. There were other treaties and things like that became international treaties. But this is the foundation of the whole social system. I'm going through this because a point that I want to make and think is really important is that much of struggle around the world and how people have trying to defend ourselves from the contradictions of the oppression, exploitation, the breakout of wars and threats of wars, some of them that we're looking at right now, the structures that have locked Africa into this ridiculous relationship that we have with Europe, with the colonial mode of production, the process that brought me to St. Petersburg, Florida, or brought me to Haiti and brought me to Jamaica and brought me to Barbados and all these other places, responsible for me being in England now, living in hostile territory, responsible for me being in France, living under the boot of colonizers. This is the process that has its origin in the development of a whole social system, and all of the social system, all of the oppression, all of the exploitation rest upon the foundation of the enslavement of African people, the dispersal of Africa and African people around the world, and the resources that Africans have participated in extracting at gunpoint to develop this social system that's known as capitalism. Of course, it happened at the expense of the indigenous peoples in all the locations that Africans were pushed into, carried into, beaten into, shot into, etc. So I just want to say that because we're looking at a lot of stuff happening in the world, and it's really important for us to understand a generalized process that brought this into being. The generalized process that's responsible for things like Sykes-Picot early in the first quarter of the 21st century, the 20th century, that created the borders that we are now looking at, and that's characterized as the Middle East, that created the contradiction where white people still are fighting and killing and maiming and destroying and starving and brutalizing people in what is now in the Gaza Strip and occupied Palestine. This is where it comes from. We look at what's happening, what is characterized as the Sahel, the attacks, the horrible response, and that's we see happening around our people in Niger and Mali and Burkina Faso, saying that they're breaking out of this relationship, similar to what happened, of course, as we know, when Lumumba made the same kind of move, when the Kenyan Land and Freedom Army introduced the slogan Uhuru to the world as a part of Africa's attempt to break out of the stranglehold that white power and the colonial mode of production had locked us into. So there's a lot of things that's happening. And I think it's really important for us to understand that we're not simply talking about colonialism as a policy, though colonialism may be a policy. It is, that is to say, a particular country may have entered into a colonial enterprise, stealing land, resources, and capturing and controlling territories and peoples, and assuming political domination for the purpose of extracting tremendous amounts of value through economic control. That may have been a policy, and a particular country may have engaged in a policy because people saw this as, that's not people, but these colonial powers saw this as get-rich-quick schemes that would elevate them from non-entities like Portugal was before it came into Africa. It has now become a system. It is not just a colonial policy. It is a colonial mode of production, which is a system. And the mode of production, as we know, is the process through which human society engages in socially creating and developing, dispersing what is necessary for the creation and recreation of real life. It is the economic life of the community, of the people, of the society. And now we're not talking about a French society or England society or Belgium society or Portuguese society. We're talking about a world society that has been locked together through this attack on Africa initially 600 years ago, and the creation of the colonial mode of production. So you have colonialism, that happens. It has happened as a matter of policy. It has happened a lot of times throughout history, but there's never been a colonial mode of production until the attack by Portugal on Africa that resulted in the dispersal of African people against our will throughout the world, the creation of a world economy that concluded attacking in the Americas and other places with the dispersal of African people, forced dispersal of African people and Africa to various places around the world. So this is really important to understand. Secondly, or in addition, I would say that the thing that our party has differed with in terms of amount of development over a period of time is that this tendency to characterize colonialism and racism and to use these as interchangeable kind of terms to explain the same phenomenon in many instances. So we talk about how racism is killing us, or it's racism that's the problem, or it's racism, or what people like to refer to as white supremacy, which is another way of characterizing this thing that we often refer to as racism, which actually is simply the ideological underpinning of a system, and it's the ideology of the system. It is an ideological foundation of the system. It's really important to understand that, to make a distinction between how people define reality and what reality really is. And reality is what it is that we have to understand. And then the explanation of that reality, we talk about the ideology that stems from that. And that's a normal relationship between a particular mode of production, between a particular economic base and what people often refer to, and Marx referred to, as a superstructure. That is to say, the ideas, philosophy, the institutions, including even legal institutions, political institutions, and things like that that stem from this economic base. And again, we're talking about a global economic base that has captured the world for the last several hundred years. And it's within this economic base, within this colonial mode of production, that most of the contests or wars and debates and struggles and philosophical differences have expressed themselves in an attempt not only to explain this reality, but also it's the context within which many of these forces fight it out over how and the meaning of this relationship and how they will benefit best from this relationship. So I just wanted to say that we're going to talk a lot, and because we're going to, looking at all kinds of things happening in the world and how to understand it, and looking at thinking that we are limited in certain ways by the definitions of the oppressor. Yeah, we have this situation where people limit our struggle to whether we like Trump or whether we like Biden, which one is the best, and as if there could be a good colonizer, a good slave master. And you've heard that before too. That was a nice slave master as opposed to a bad slave master. Wow, they didn't want to take us on down the river, down south, because we're going to get a bad slave master in those circumstances, still enslaved. And we look at the reality is that some of the most impressive, progressive, if you will, characterized leaders and what they like to refer to as the founding fathers of this country were slave owners. And they were brutal because slavery can only maintain its existence through brutality of various forms and iterations and what have you. And the same thing is true with colonialism. I remember being a younger person and this discussion about who was the best colonizer, France or England, and whether France had really developed the colonized people to the extent where they could be independent, whether England had done that more appropriately. This is the kind of ridiculous arguments we get trapped into when we locked into the logic of the oppressor, and whether that's a general oppressor or not so general oppressor, if there could be such a thing, that's still oppression. So this is what it is. I think I would open up in terms of staying, and I know that's a long kind of discussion, but I think we'll be talking. And I want to say, finally, we're just trying to raise $2,000 here, and we want to raise $2,000 as a part of a $10,000 effort to support this radio station. And there are people who don't want this radio station to exist. They want us to be able to talk. They threatened the manager of the radio station with imprisonment. They threatened me with imprisonment because the relationship to the radio station has overall to the Uhuru Movement, in the sense that they also believe in more or less the same things that the African People's Social Party, the Uhuru Movement, believes in. That other sectors, Penny Hess and Jesse Neville, they want to shut us up. This is really important because, and you have to do this, and they're afraid of you because it's not so much of what I say that's the problem. I could talk in the wind. I could find a place that nobody can hear me, but the fact that you can hear me, it's now free speech is not just tied to my being able to talk, but it's your being able to hear what I have to say. You can dismiss it, but you'll become much better informed, at least if you hear what I'm talking about. And that's part of what this is about. And so you have corporations spend billions of dollars they put satellites in space to communicate with each other. They control most of the communication process. That's why you've come up with terms like Facebook jail and like shadow banning, et cetera, because the oppressor does not want us to talk to, and they are not going to provide the kinds of resources that we need in order to communicate. You have to do that. We have to do that. And we have to get accustomed to doing that, because sometimes people turn on the radio and they think they're listening. It's not costing, but it is costing. And you are paying for it. Even if you don't pay directly, you pay for it every time you buy one of those products that's being used, that these radio stations are being used to sell. Every time you can't even go to weather and check the weather report without it being paid for, but without it being produced and presented by a major corporation that wants to sell you something other than the weather. And in fact, they sell weather every time, and people who live in the state of Florida know exactly what I'm talking about, because they have this thing called hurricane season. You have the weather people out doing dramatic kinds of reporting to get you to run to your local big box store to buy plywood and do the kinds of things that they want you to pay for. So they're not going to pay for this. They're paying to shut this down. They're the ones who hire the politicians, who work against us, who work behind our backs to crush us, etc. So it's up to you to be able to put the money here. We need the $2,000. And if we can go ahead and get that $2,000 quickly, then I would spend less time doing what I'm doing now, and we can get on with what the discussion is supposed to be about. All right. Thank you.
Uhuru, Chairman. Well, I really want to just salute that incredible overview. I think that it just it sets the framework for the discussion that we will have by getting us to the origin. Like you said, that overview helps to define everything that we will discuss today in terms of the crises, that we see erupting throughout the world, because it has a starting point. And also, we've characterized this analysis around the colonial mode of production as the missing link, to just the overall understanding. And even those like Karl Marx and, how the development of capitalism, happened in the world. This has been the missing understanding around Africa and the development of a whole world economy, not something, specific to one location, but was dispersed and, and defines the entire world. And so I just think that's really profound, because that explains why the world is in the state that it's in. And it's not, so much this pessimistic view that the colonizer, because the world, as we know it, has been defined by the colonizer up to now, the crises is explained in the news and things like this is, something negative, when really we're looking at the destruction of a social system. We're looking at the rebirth of the world, and those previously colonized, oppressed, exploited, dominated by the colonizer, for the existence of this mode of production now coming, into the leaders and the makers and shapers. So I just really, really appreciate that overview, because again, it does allow us to start the discussion where it needs to. And so we'll get to that in just a moment. But I also wanted to unite with your call to donate to Black Pride 96 Radio to contribute to this really important station that's, as you said, allows us to bring this analysis, and it's something that they are attacking. This is one of the instruments of free speech. The radio is one place where people can, be able to have these types of discussions. And, as we know, it's something like 6 major corporations that control something like 90% of the media that we consume, and that includes radio. And so we pay for it. We pay for it in literal dollars, and we pay a price for it in all other aspects of life. When we have our whole worldview is controlled, through what it is, these institutions. And so we are taking it back. We are, through this radio station, through this project of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, they have initiated this project that allows for the African community to take the narrative and control the narrative. And, I think that's just really critical. And we can see how the state, is moving on an institution like this. So it's really important that people support Black Pride 96 Radio, the People Station, the best radio station on the planet. So I want to, so again, go to blackpride96.org/donate, help us make that $2,000 goal. We can get there. I know we can get there, but let's get there quickly so that, as Chairman said, we can proceed with the discussion at hand here. We can continue to bring this type of analysis to listeners like you through Black Pride 96 Radio. So, Chairman, you have, talked about, you've summed up, predicted, even in a lot of your books, political reports, around this whole notion of the crisis of imperialism. And you show how deep this is today, and how the colonial ruling class, we talk about how they cannot rule in the same old way. So, just wondering if you can comment, and we have, very specific examples in the world right now, what that looks like. So could you, talk about what does that mean, imperialism in crisis, and the colonial ruling class losing its grip?
Let me just say quickly that one way that we've defined in the past, most of us and people who considered ourselves progressive and were extremely influenced by Karl Marx, who was a very brilliant man on the one hand, and talked about crisis being a consequence of the actual process of capitalist production. And the fact is that capitalism is motivated simply by greed, by profit. That's the only thing it's searching for. There's no logic to it. It's not planned economy. That's, you will hear constantly people who are denouncing the economy in places like Russia, or places, well, not Russia anymore, but places like China and other places where there were attempts at organizing planned economies. And as you hear this word planned economy, and in other words, it's a preference for the anarchy of what they call market production. There's production based on selling stuff. You're on profit. There's no planning to it as such. I mean, there are attempts at what they call planning, but profit is the driving force. And that means that if profit is the driving force, then people don't make cars because they need transportation, because people need transportation. People make cars because they want to sell a lot of cars. That is to say, corporations do that, companies do that. And the same thing is true with virtually every commodity. And a commodity is something that happens in a system that's produced in a system for the purpose of trade, for the purpose of selling, not because people need it. People don't make hospitals because they cure people anymore. They make hospitals to make money. There's profit. In fact, there's more profit in sickness than there is in healing people, which is why the pharmaceutical corporations continue to get rich, and why even what the pharmaceutical corporations sell people, they have to also say that when you take this, you're going to have some other diseases associated with it. That's the way the profit-based system works. And so what they call crisis in most instances is because there is no plan for the economy. Every corporation makes as many cars as they can make. And what happens is that after everybody has bought as many cars as they can, as they can afford to buy, then there's this crisis that happens because what are you going to do with the extra cars? People are going to get laid off from their jobs. They get laid off from their jobs, and that means that they can't buy refrigerators, they can't buy houses, they can't buy any other thing. This is what people refer to often as the crisis of capitalism. And this is Marx did a lot to help to explain that. But the fundamental contradiction is that they don't say that the main base of this economy is colonialism, and that the cars that are made that people are running out to purchase have resources stolen, bauxite coming from various other places around the world. They're talking about even now lithium and all these other products that go into the development of the car, or go into the development of the instruments that's being sold. And so the thing that Marx talks about in terms of how the capitalist system articulates itself is something that's articulated on the colonial, on the pedestal of colonized people, colonial people, and we don't factor into that. And this is a grave mistake, because the real crisis of capitalism, the one that we've been talking about, the one that we've been defining a long time, is attached to the ongoing inability of the capitalists, of the colonizers, to control and take the resources away from Africa, from the Americas, from the people of Asia, and the competition that they are engaged in with other predators and other forces for the same kinds of resources, etc. So we can see crisis happening, and the crisis is connected to the success or the threat even of struggles by Africans and by people in these different areas of the world, like Mali right now, and like Venezuela. And if you look at it, most of what people are identifying as the origin of crisis is associated with the colonized peoples and countries in various places. And even when they talk about Russia and China, they're talking about the fact that the United States now has to engage in a real struggle, competing with these forces for the resources that traditionally and historically have come from Africa, come from other places in the world. It's no small thing that the largest the largest economic force on the continent of Africa today is China. And whereas before it was the United States and different other European colonial powers. This leads to all kinds of contradictions and struggles, crises between China, between Russia for these resources. Got no love for democracy, no love for the people, etc. Everybody is out for themselves because everybody's functioning, no matter how well-intentioned they are, no matter what kinds of speeches they make, is all occurring within a colonial mode of production. And colonialism is a parasitic kind of relationship. The colonial mode of production is based on parasitism. And it means that the entire the economic project rests upon the foundation of the colonial control and exploitation of African and colonized people globally. And at the point that we recognize this as colonized people, then we unite and we stand a much better chance of fighting back. In the 1950s, we saw the amazing development of the Bandung in Bandung, Indonesia, where none of the colonizers were able to come to this conference. And Malcolm X has spoken about it, said the white man couldn't come. This was in Indonesia, and people from China and various other places in Africa were there. And then after that, in the 1950s, 1962, we saw the Trilateral Conference that happened in Havana, Cuba, 1967, I should say. You had Amilcar Cabral, you had all kinds of other forces who came to Cuba to talk about how the trilateral, this is Africa, Asia, and what they call Latin America, coming together to carve out a common future in opposition to colonialism and the capitalist system that arrived from that. So this is how you know about crisis. This is what we see about crisis. When we see the success, the whole struggle around Venezuela, around Nicaragua, around Cuba, when you see what's happening throughout Africa, when you see what's happening, like in the Middle East, the Palestinians, the magnificent Palestinians doing this, and then you remember that we are also talking about a system that rests upon the land base of stolen land of the indigenous people. You're looking right now at comrade, our relative Leonard Peltier, who's been locked up for nearly 50 years on bogus charges by the FBI, by the United States government, precisely because this is indigenous land. And the indigenous people suffer mightily, and there's nothing that they can do to find happiness without having to go up against the system that has been imposed on their land by foreigners and aliens who took over the land by settlers. And then the Africans have to be in a perpetual place of struggle too inside this country. And this is the colonial mode of production as it's being experienced and fought against by peoples around the world and inside this country as well. And this is why at the same time you see in the world, you see battleships being sent to the Mediterranean to try and control the people, the Houthis in Yemen. You see them also concerned about how billions of dollars going to an illegitimate white nationalist settler state in Israel to kill Palestinian people who are colonized there. At the same time that is happening, they are trying to figure out ways to combat the fact that our people in Mali and Niger and throughout the Sahel of Africa are fighting for their freedom, and they're at the same time they're sending armored vehicles into St. Petersburg, Florida, and St. Louis, Missouri, to try and crush the revolution, the critical component, strategic component of the African Revolution as it exists, that is on the own land base of the United States. This is crises writ large. This is big time crisis, and it's being misunderstood, misdirected, and purposely by our oppressors and many people who supposed to be our friends. And many people were part of the overall movement against what they characterize as imperialism. And many people who are African, who are talking about fighting for African freedom, find themselves functioning as opportunists. And when I say opportunists, I'm not trying to say necessarily make some kind of pejorative statement about somebody, but we define opportunism. We're talking about sacrificing the long-term aims of the revolution for some kind of short-term victory for the petty bourgeoisie, generally, even if it's a national petty bourgeoisie, so that they would settle for a piece of this or a piece of that, as opposed to recognizing that the total colonial enterprise has to be destroyed. And critical to that is the total, absolute, unconditional liberation of Africa, African people around the world, and the unification of African people around the world. That has to be the objective of the African people and the African revolution is fighting for. And the destruction of colonialism has to be the objective of the colonial mode of production, has to be the objective that all of the oppressed people, all the peoples on the planet Earth have to be united in fighting, even white people. Because if there's a contradiction that white women experience, it's because of the colonial mode of production. If there's a contradiction that white homosexual experience, it's because of the colonial mode of production. The fact is that there exists in this situation a primary contradiction. And people like they come up with this colonial university developed concept of intersectionality or something to that effect. But the reality is that all kinds of contradictions exist at the same time, but there are fundamental contradiction. One has to identify the primary fundamental contradiction around which all the others resolve. And that contradiction is the oppression of nation by nations. And even though that there is oppression within different nations, exploitation perhaps within different nations, they all owe their existence, their power, their capacity to do that to this primary primary contradiction, which is the colonial mode of production. So I said a lot about that because I'm trying to get a lot in at the same time. Uhuru.
Yes, Uhuru, Chairman. Well, I mean, I think that helps us to segue into our next question, and I'm going to change it a little bit because you dealt with it in the overview for this discussion. But I think what's really important to note here is that this understanding of the colonial mode of production, the fundamental, defining what the fundamental contradiction is something that has been fought for, pursued by you and the African People's Socialist Party, and developed into the theory of African internationalism. And, you know, when there was the defeat of the Black Revolution of the 1960s, and which occurred, you know, certainly in this country, inside the US, but it was something that, you know, we saw, you know, throughout the world. You mentioned Patrice Lumumba, you mentioned the Kenyan Land Freedom Army. I mean, this was the natural kind of development for African people, our struggle to fight against colonialism. And so that whole movement, that whole period, you know, had been tainted, destroyed by the colonial powers. And it was from that period where you and the part and the development of the African People's Socialist Party rescued our struggle. And part of rescuing it was to identify what the fundamental contradiction was. And you did that and fought for that and went up against the grain despite all of the different definitions. We talked about ideological imperialism, which was a part of the counterinsurgency. So you had all these different explanations about why our movement was defeated and what it was that Black people needed to struggle against. But you continued to assert it was colonialism. Colonialism has to be the thing that's understood that we have to fight against. That gives our struggle a to what end. And it allows us to place the definition of the world not by the colonizer, but African people ourselves, by the colonized ourselves. We can explain the world, and also we're not just these objects of someone else. We're not objects of someone else's history, but the primary subjects of world history. And you know, so I think it's really important, and I'm saying all of this because, you know, we are facing attack right now, and it's being said that you are an agent of Russia, and that we achieve these understandings because of Russia. And you know, when I just think about how, you know, insulting and ridiculous and bogus that is, but I mean, this is the reality that you have fought for this understanding, and we see that understanding, being achieved, throughout the world today. We see, colonialism popping up even in the bourgeois papers, the thinkers, for this bourgeois system, talking about colonialism, and that is a direct consequence of your intervention and the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And so I don't know if that's not really a question, but I guess if you wanted to comment.
I think that's true. I mean, it's the reality, and it shouldn't be that complicated. If except for the fact that this government does everything it can and all of the colonial powers to erase history, and therefore they will have forgotten that Malcolm X talked about the struggle against colonialism. That the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee raised the question of colonialism. That people like various organizations, the Black Panther Party. They got a lot of people who were members of the Black Panther Party. They joined the Black Panther Party because they had a choice of joining an organization that was organizations that were fighting against racism, or to join organization and movement fighting against colonialism. So you saw these anti-colonial struggles happening all around the world and inside the United States. And we saw it with the Kenyan Land Freedom Army, or Mau Mau, as you identified. We saw it with Kwame Nkrumah. We saw it in Ghana. We saw it, our people in Algeria. Throughout the world, people were fighting against colonialism. And many of the people who, from the Black Panther Party and from that era struggle, went to prison. They went to prison because they were united with an organization fighting against colonialism. Now, many times people join movements and they are enthralled by movements because the movements excite their imagination and what it is that people are doing in any moment in time. And everybody who joins a movement doesn't necessarily understand the ideological foundation or expressions even of that movement. And sometimes people cannot make a distinction between the self-consciousness, or how a movement perceives itself, and the origin of that consciousness. But the fact is that even people who went to prison and spent years in prison, they went in the struggle against colonialism, but their world changed, many of them, once they got in prison. And once they got in prison, their struggle was about what? Getting out of prison. And the struggle against getting out of prison was not something that was usually, or too often, it was not something that was defined as a part of the struggle against colonialism. Because the anti-colonial movement, the back was broken through assassinations, mass incarceration beyond what most people understand in this country and around the world that happened to African people in this country. Massive incarcerations, on the street execution of people, some of whom were militants, some were just done to terrorize the African population, etc. And so what happens, you had a tremendous amount of militancy that was concentrated in the prison. But that not necessarily didn't mean that development was concentrated in the prison. And since much of the African Revolution had been crushed, what many of the brothers and sisters who were locked up in these concentration camps that they call colonial concentration camps, that they call prison, got most of their ideological and political information and understanding from colonizer left forces inside this country. So whereas Africans spoke mostly for ourselves and were crushed because we were speaking for ourselves, and Africans were put in prison because we were speaking for ourselves, increasingly who was speaking for us were colonizer, white people who had their left colonizer organization who was speaking and interpreting the world. Sometimes the best of them did it in a fashion that they characterized as following Black leadership. But the Black leadership they were following were locked up in prison. So it had placed severe limitations on what kind of leadership they were following. They were following Black leadership from their own perspective, from their own interests as colonizers. And so this was a real kind of contradiction, but we fought through that. And because we fought outside the prison, we fought all the time against colonialism, colonial mode of production. We were never diverted away from the struggle against colonialism because we were in prison. When we were in prison, some of us, we still had organization and the capacity to fight against colonialism as the basis for our being in prison in the first place. And so, yeah, we fought against that. In the process of fighting against this, we came to understand, we were forced to understand things that we saw symptoms of all along. We recognized the relationship that our struggle had with the people of Vietnam. We saw the connection that the struggle of African people in this country had with what was happening all over Africa and in Cuba, and places like that. But we were still, many of us, limited in terms of how we understood the connection between them. And that's what the party was forced to do, to recognize the connection, that there is an organic, not some just policy connection, but an organic connection because of the mode of production. And the issue now, that's why when the Nicaraguan revolution broke out, nobody had to tell us, or when it heated up, nobody had to tell us. We didn't know any Nicaraguans, but we recognized, because we were engaged in the same struggle, we recognized that right away. We turned all of our resources over to that revolution. We had mass meetings. We found Nicaraguans and invited them to our conferences and things like that. The same thing with Palestine. We didn't know Palestinians, but we knew that was part of the same struggle. And we engaged in that struggle because it was the colonial mode of production that we were fighting against. And at the time we supported Nicaragua, at the time we supported the Palestinians when we started. There were generally speaking, no white people who were fighting on the side of the Palestinians. It was Malcolm X who talked about that. It was SNCC who talked about that. It was the Black Revolution here and various other places around the world who understood the commonality, the fact that we are part of the same general colonial construct. And so, yeah, we fought for that. And as a consequence of fighting for that continuously, in fact, when the party was founded in 1972, we said the project was to continue to complete the Black Revolution that started in the 60s, not to find a new fight against racism, as many Black people who had been part of that struggle did. And they denounced the whole concept of a leading revolutionary organization and determined that the struggle had to be just to bring together coalitions with no objective in terms of the capture of political and economic power of our own lives. That's what the party has done. That's what we continue to fight for. That's what we continue to say is the only logical thing to do, even as predators continue to try and devour our Africa and to keep us separated as Africans, and to keep the colonized peoples of the world separated from this common project, and placing, therefore, settlers and colonizers in the proper relationship to this struggle, because they are a minority of the people on the planet Earth. And that's the contradiction, that one aspect of the contradiction that the world is confronted with, while a minority of the human beings called Europeans, etc., control and dominate the whole world. So you have these foreign and aliens who control the resources of our people, whether that's in Palestine, whether that's in North St. Louis, or whether that's in Cuba or any other place around the world. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman. I just wanted to remind people before we continue on with this discussion, that you cannot find discussions like this anywhere else. And while we are speaking to you on platforms like Facebook, on YouTube, these platforms that are not controlled by us, and at any point in time could be shut down and have been shut down. People's ability to find us on these platforms been limited because of the type of discussion that we're having. This type of discussion cannot be limited on our own radio station, on a Black community radio station like Black Power 96 Radio. And just wanted to again remind people too that this special episode, is calling on you to support Black Power 96 Radio by donating today during the July member drive. We have a $2,000 goal to reach by the end of this study, and you can do that by going to blackpower96.org/donate, or donating through Cash App, $ Black Power 96, or via the mail to Black Power 96, 1245 18th Avenue South, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33705. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a moment. But Chairman, I just based off of what you just laid out here, and I really, really want to just salute this whole understanding of like having to pull it all together again, defining the fundamental contradiction, because you do have all of these, struggles that are, happening for all these different things. And like you said, opportunism, sacrificing the long-term objective for these short-term, aims. And most often are part of, as you say, like refining or improving the social system, but not actually attacking the social system itself. And I just see that same strategy. And this just proves that the party has never abandoned the trajectory of struggling against colonialism and or abandon the trajectory of African revolution, because we have so many different fronts of the African People's Social Party, of the Uhuru Movement, and we've intervened in all of these different types of struggles to bring it all together. And when I think about in this period, where we have engaged in this fight back, this counteroffensive, following the July 29, 2022 FBI attacks on you and this movement, how our struggle has not just been to make sure people stay out of prison, and that's a part of what we are trying to do. We want to ensure that they cannot make more political prisoners, and especially attack the leadership of the African Revolution. So we say drop the charges on the Uhuru 3, but our objective was to, use this opportunity to catapult the struggle against colonialism and to build a movement against colonialism and to connect all of these struggles that sometimes happen in isolation, all these anti-colonial struggles erupting throughout the world, and bring it all together and with helping to define it and give it the proper conclusion. And that is something that we see manifesting in the world today through the work that we are doing. We see that coming together, and that's a part of deepening the crisis. So and I just wanted to bring up these specific instances. We talked, you mentioned a lot about France, and in the Sahel region of Africa, and in New Caledonia, there's which is a French colony. The people are also, fighting, telling France to get out, and they've just conducted, recently some arrests there. And then there was recently an article in the New York Times that resistance is breaking out, all over the world. So is there anything specific or speaking to these things? And I also really appreciate discussions that we've been able to have about how France has is like through all these struggles happening, like in a certain way, like the separation of France from the whole colonial project, but how anyway, France is a part of the overall thing, and that these struggles are really important, happening of kicking France out, but the overall objective again of destroying the colonial mode of production. So sorry, that was long-winded, but want to turn that over
Yeah, I
to.
think that's really important because France is it's characterized now sometimes derisively by even colonizers as a second-rate power. And the fact of the matter is, were it not for the colonial possessions that France has under its control, and in a very shaky situation, now France would be nothing. All of the sidewalk cafes they brag about in Paris and what have you, they exist on sidewalks that were created from the blood of African people and the blood of the people in Vietnam and other places around the world. And as you mentioned, even when you look at what they call New Caledonia, and there's a lesson, there are all kinds of lessons to be learned there, but many people may not be aware that the much bragged about Paris Commune, that happened, the revolution that happened in Paris, that this is like an iconic occurrence in Marx's understanding in Paris, and that set the terms for what they have thought about, and some of them about even the Soviets, how the Soviets should look, et cetera, what we saw in Paris. But what happened, of course, was that there are thousands of Parisians who were killed when the Paris Commune was shut down, when that revolution was crushed. And many of the people who survived that were sent to prison colony in what we now call New Caledonia. in the place where masses of people, Black people, are rising up today. And they're rising up today against the heirs, the grandchildren of the people who came from the Paris Commune, this great example of the communist movement, communist revolution that was saluted by everybody from Karl Marx to C.L.R. James as being critical historical occurrences. And what we see is that their children now are dominating the Black people there, because even the French Revolution was fighting for success on the pedestal of colonization of African and other people around the world. And so the reason you have this uprisings at the now that's happening in what they call New Caledonia is the fact that the growing number of the white people now have become such that they want to change the laws around elections that would allow people to vote in these elections within a time frame that would guarantee that the majority vote would come from white people to dominate and control the land. And France has already controlled it from France, but several thousand miles away. Now France wants to have white people control it directly, there, and to give it an air of legitimacy. And so this is the thing where this uprising has come about. And I think it's important. It's important also because when you look at France and understand the colonial mode of production and how all of the activity that you see happening within Europe and the white world at large, the white society at large, that sprang from the colonial mode of production, that it again happens on our backs. And so people talk about France as being the great anti-fascist movement. And there are stories of great heroism and charismatic French guerrillas with their berets on, who fought against the Nazis and the fascists from Germany. And some of that did happen, though much of it was falsified. And many of the people who have been characterized subsequently as great resistors turned out to have been collaborating with the Nazis. But regardless of that, this France that was supposed to be fighting against fascism also control colonized peoples around the world, including in the place that we now call New Caledonia, including Algeria, including several territories in Africa, including other spaces. And this was under colonialism. And this brings us to have to recognize that people, when they talk about fascism, they're talking about when aspects of the colonial experience penetrates, intervenes, leaks over into the society of the colonizers themselves. And that's when you hear the scream, fight against fascism, fascism, fascism. And that's what happened even when in Portugal, dominating Africa, parts of Africa, and then the contradiction in Portugal became such that the aspects of the colonial contradiction penetrates in the Portuguese society in terms of repression, in terms of locking up people without regard for any laws and stuff like that, in terms of even making laws up in the process. This now is called fascism. And so all the colonized people are asked to fight against fascism. They're not fighting against colonialism, fight against fascism, which is to fight, to mobilize us to fight against one sector of the white colonizers versus another sector of the white colonizers. Fight against Trump, who is a fascist, while Biden is leading this whole process that has now threatening to put me in prison for 15 years, that put the cops on the streets that killed George Floyd and all these other people. Biden did that, as a senator. Same Biden who was opposed even to a civil rights bill. The same Biden who was opposed even to a voting rights act because he didn't want his children to go to school in a jungle. So you got all of these people, and they're telling us that we shouldn't fight for ourselves. We should fight for one sector of the colonizers versus another sector of the colonizers. So the point is that that there are so many contradictions that's bundled up in everything that we see occurring in the world. We just have to know how to recognize what it is that we're looking at, and that the fact is that there is a colonial mode of production that's responsible for everything that we see, and including what we see happening in Africa. Africa trying to break free, have been trying to break free forever. And we'll be able to do that depending on how successful we are in the African People's Socialist Party, when the African Socialist International is spreading African internationalism and bringing organization to these particular settings. So I wanted to say that, and I wanted to say that send the money. We need a minimum of $2,000, and really we need to do that quickly. So I don't want to stop this discussion to say send the money. And you can shut me up. You don't have to come with flashbang grenades and armored vehicles and things like that. You can shut me up by just sending the money. Let's make this payment to keep this radio station up and this particular program available. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, thank you so much. And I just, I really appreciate, what you just laid out about fascism, and as it relates to, France, but the whole thing of, now we have to struggle against fascism, and and all of this uproar about, Trump. I mean, one, because the Democratic Party in the elections in the U.S., the Democratic Party doesn't have any options, and so they are just really desperate, with this Biden situation. But the whole narrative is like, Trump is a fascist, and they'd rather have a senile old man, than a fascist, as if Biden hasn't carried out these things that you just said, as if Biden and Netanyahu aren't killing Palestinians, thousands and thousands of Palestinians. And, just forget about all of this. We got to stop Trump, that these are the options. And then while they're trying to lock away the real alternative, which is the leadership of the African Revolution. So, I just really want to appreciate that. And we're getting into our last question for this interview here. And it has been such an honor, Chairman, to just have this discussion and to be able to talk about all of this with you. And this last question.
Money, we need $2,000, a minimum $2,000.
Uhuru. And we're going, and in just a moment, we'll talk about the give backs. We'll acknowledge our donors. But we're just going to end it with this last question. And this is really important, and also highlights why the support for Black Pride 96 is extremely necessary. So up to now, the current world situation is the context for the most recent FBI attacks on the African People's Socialist Party and Uhuru Movement, including recent attacks made on the African People's Education and Defense Fund, a nonprofit developing liberated economic institutions by and for the African community, led by President Onizine Yeshitela. And as mentioned, Black Power 96 is a project of APEDF. And among economic sanctions through the closing down of APEDF bank accounts, this happened in spring of last year. Their Regions Bank, shutting down bank accounts and ending credit lines and things like that, despite something like a 20-year history, with these institutions, and shutting these bank accounts down with no warning, no explanation, and then also last year, locally, Pinellas County, where St. Petersburg is located. The local Pinellas County Commission took away previously awarded grant funds and recently filed a court document that slanders, just outright lies, against the Uhuru Movement as a part of a lawsuit that Black Pride 96 filed for the return of those stolen resources. And, so I just wanted us to be able to talk about, and this helps, again, prove that this ain't nothing to do with Russia. It has everything to do with, what it is that the Uhuru Movement, your leadership, has done, and bringing the African Revolution around the world, but also, what it is that this movement continues to do in contending with the colonial colonialism and the power that the colonizer has over our lives to feed, clothe, and house ourselves, that we had determined to take that into our own hands as a part of making an overall struggle to be free. And we've, been successful, in that struggle. And that is the real threat. That is what the FBI and the US government is really attacking. And they don't say that, but that it's important for us to say it. And, so these recent attacks on APEDF and these economic institutions is a part of the whole assault on free speech and on the right of colonized people to struggle in their own interests. So I just wanted to know if you could comment on that before we move on with the rest of our program.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for even bringing that up, and I want to really express appreciation, profound, deeply held and felt appreciation to Carmen Onazene Yeshitela, who has been a primary architect and who has steered much of the financial and economic work of the party for this last period, and who presides over Carmen Onazene Yeshitela, who is the president of African People's Education and Defense Fund, that is responsible for much of the projects that we're talking about. And I think that you've talked about what the banks have done, and we've seen a church burned down that was under contract, that President Onazene Yeshitela was in the process of acquiring to put other programs in St. Louis, Missouri. We've seen, like assault made initially seem to be disturbing, but not necessarily part of overall program of the flag right here in St. Petersburg, Florida, 15 by 25 foot flag on a 50-foot flagpole, torched by somebody in broad daylight with somebody with a military grade flamethrower. And then you look at this attack on the radio station, where this radio station that we are speaking on now, which is exactly part of the reason that you have to support this radio station that we're speaking on now, that was temporarily taken off air on July 29, 2022, when they attacked our institutions. This radio station that was one of several, I think maybe 3 scores of people who had applied for this grant that was tied to the COVID crisis, and was one of the top 4 or 5 and granted these resources, and that the Pinellas County system, the Pinellas County government, after we had been granted the station had been granted these resources, came out and said, "You're not getting them. We're taking it back." And then in response to the suit that we filed, they went and hired an outside group of attorneys to respond, and they have used the response that this is not against free speech, this is not against freedom of association, because they had said there was a relationship at one juncture, said or inferred, between the attack that was made on the party by the United States government because of a claimed Russian connection. And so what they've said is that in a recently filed document to the court, that this has nothing to do with free speech or association, but that the members of the Uhuru Movement had killed 1 or 2 cops, I think they said, in Daytona Beach, and that we had attacked, harmed some Jews and some other place, etc. And this is the part of the document they put forward. And what they are doing is, and this is in a federal court, the same federal court that we'll be going to on September 3rd. This case is being heard. And what they are doing, in part, getting around, trying to skate around the fact that the charges they're made against the Uhuru 3 is just on speech, not because of anything that we've done. No terrorism, no violence, no anything like that. They're saying through this, coming through the back door with this lie, that we killed 2 policemen and that we did something bad to some Jews, etc. So this is the kind of stuff that we're up against. And this also says something about the responsibility of you, people who support this station, support the struggle against colonialism, support the party, support the Uhuru Movement. And we have to see supporting the station as part of a fight back, because they see it as a part of a counterinsurgency to make sure that the African people and others don't ever get to be free, and that people cannot hear what it is that we have to say that explains this reality in a fashion that takes African people from away from the margins of history and show the centrality of Black people, the African Revolution, and other colonized peoples around the world, and the fact that it's been a marginalized population historically that seized control of the peoples of the world, including Africa and ourselves. So, we're just looking for a minimum of $2,000 with this show. You can send the whole 10,000 that we are trying to raise for the entire fundraising process, but 2,000 for this show, that's something that we're looking for. So thank you, Uhuru.
Uhuru, Chairman, thank you. And thank you for just going over, the case and overview of that case. And, really want to encourage people to follow that case by going to blackpower96.org, just reading up on all of the recent documents and, just overall, how that lawsuit is proceeding. And just want to add that, those resources, like you said, I mean, the Black Power 96 Radio came in 4th out of 55 applicants. And there was a second grant APEDF had filed for a generator for the Uhuru House located in St. Petersburg, Florida, to be able to continue carrying out the programs like the commercial kitchen, the rental hall space, and especially in the situation where this location is confronted with hurricanes and those other kinds of weather circumstances. And so to be able to, and it also ranked 4th, I think, in 79 applicants. So it was a good application. It was good across the board, even by their own standards. It was an outstanding application. And in the case of Black Power 96, that money had been given. The Black Power 96 was in the process of, signing contracts, and then they had this backdoor meeting. These are all things that, they didn't want to come out, and this lawsuit has, really pulled those things out, in this process. And, so I just, I really, really want to stress that those resources, I mean, these are resources that belong to the African community anyway. Like we're not, even like the whole grants and things like that, we're not at like, those resources belong to African people. They're accumulated through the process of exploiting and oppressing the African community. The Pinellas County Commission oversees, the processes of gentrification and pushing Black people out of, this community, and then assaults the nonprofit APEDF and the institutions that are, working and fighting, for the African community. So I just wanted to really stress that those resources belong to African people. And so, it's really important what APEDF has done in fighting back with this lawsuit. And we can support the efforts of APEDF, of Black Power 96, by making the contribution today for the fund drive. And we're going to, go into that right now, actually. Again, this is why it's important, why people must support this radio station. We must support our own institutions, as it's a way to fight back the economic control that the colonial ruling class has over our lives. And as mentioned in the beginning of this program, Omali Taught Me is part of the programming lineup on Black Power 96 Radio, 96.3 FM in St. Petersburg, Florida, and streaming online through Black Power 96 mobile app. Black Power 96 Radio is 100% funded through donations from listeners and supportive businesses in our community. You literally power Black Power 96. And on today's special episode of the Omali Taught Me, we are raising funds for Black Power 96 Radio, an important platform that allows us to study and discuss the struggle for African liberation. And as mentioned, Black Power 96's goal throughout the month of July is to raise $10,000. And the Omali Taught Me show has a goal to raise $2,000 towards that. So yes, If you have the full $10,000 and you can make that contribution, that is a serious call for those who have access to that kind of those resources, that wealth. If you have the $10,000 to just give to the station, we can wrap the July fund drive up early. And the same is true for the $2,000 goal on today. If you have $2,000 goal to contribute, to just contribute the whole thing, you can do that as well. And throughout this process, and I believe before the second hour of our show today, we reached at least $1,000. So just want to salute everyone, and we'll acknowledge those donors in just a moment. Who helped to make so far a $2,000 goal, get us closer to our $2,000 goal. I also just wanted to mention that donating to Black Power 96 Radio keeps this community station on the air and supports the Black community having its own radio station, self-reliant, community-controlled media capacity in the hands of the African working class, even in the face of unconstitutional attacks on the station, including the theft of $100,000 in grant funding that the station qualified for and was then revoked and denied. Even as Black Power 96 fights in the legal arena to recover those stolen resources, our community continues to fund this station's day-to-day work. Black Power 96 is a project of the African People's Education and Defense Fund, which has a 30-year track record of developing institutions for African economic development and self-determination. Supporting this station means you are amplifying the mission of APEDF on the radio airwaves to defend the human and civil rights of the African community and to end the disparities faced by African people in health, healthcare, education, and economic development. And again, if you don't already listen to Black Power 96 Radio, you can tune in on 96.3 FM in St. Petersburg, Florida, or listen from anywhere on blackpower96.org or downloading the Black Power 96 mobile app, available on the App Store, Apple App Store, or Google Play Store. And for ways to donate. And I want to just go ahead and get into, again, showing our ways to donate and also talking about what our give backs are and acknowledging those sustainers. Sustainers are those who support the station through a donation every single month. So again, you can go to blackpower96.org/donate if you haven't already, or if you have and you have just been inspired by the overall discussion on today to contribute more. Go to blackpower96.org/donate. Also, we do have a Cash App here, $ Black Power 96. You can make a contribution to the Black Power 96 Cash App as well. And if you prefer checks, you can send checks, resources in the mail, to Black Power 96, located at 1245 18th Avenue South, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33705. So those ways to donate are also located in the chat. Depending on where you're watching this program from today, you can check the information in the chat as well to keep up with how to make a contribution. So we'll go to the next slide here and talk about, again, wanting to, again, mention to download the app from available on the App Store or Google Play Store, Black Power 96 mobile app, so you can listen to it anytime on the go. If you're in St. Petersburg, Florida, and you leave the range of the station's reach, download that app and then you won't miss a beat. So we're going to go now to special thank yous, and all donors who make a contribution today will receive, let's put that up on the screen. All donors today will receive a custom BP96 magnet. Oh, guess we're waiting to get that back up. Let me see. Okay, give me 1 second. All right. So all donors will receive a custom BP96 magnet. So any contribution that you've made, no contribution is too small, too big. All our donors will receive a custom BP96 magnet. If you give $60 today or become a $5 a month monthly sustainer, again, that's a sustainer, somebody who contributes to the station on a monthly basis. So $5 a month sustainer or giving $60 today will get you this custom coaster in the form of this really cute vinyl. So with the Black Power 96 logo, so like a vinyl record coaster with Black Power 96 logo today, that can be yours with just $60 or becoming a $5 a month sustainer. If you give $100 today or become a $10 a month monthly sustainer, you can receive this Black Power 96 cooling headband. And I do not need to say anything about this massive heat wave, especially right here in the US, that we are experiencing, not just in Florida, but I hear this is true for a lot of different places. So this cooling headband will come in handy for the summer. So if you give $100 today or become a $10 a month monthly sustainer, you will receive this Black Power 96 cooling headband. And a special give back for donors who give $100 or more during the Omali Taught Me Sunday study will receive this Omali Taught Me bookmark. So I know if you're, whether you're reading one of the chairman's many writings, many works, our avid readers out there who like that physical print book, and just to be reminded too, no matter what book you're reading, that Omali taught me, right? So even as you're reading a book, and you can analyze, what's in that book based off the theory of African internationalism. So we are giving, this is a special give back just for the Omali Taught Me Show program. If you give $100 or more today during this study, you will receive that Omali Taught Me metal bookmark. And then if you give $300 today or become a new $25 a month monthly sustainer, you'll receive the Black Power 96 t-shirt. So support this station and show your support by sporting this Black Power 96 radio t-shirt. Let the people know this is the station that I listen to, that this is the station that they need to listen to. So again, $300 today or a new $25 a month sustainer, you can get this Black Power 96 t-shirt. So we want to just take this moment right now to shout out our Black Power 96 radio sustainers and all of the supporting members, all of you who make regular contributions to Black Power 96 radio, not just during the period of fund drives, but all the time, to keep this station on the air and allowing us to do the work that we do. So those sustainers include our very own Chairman Omali Yeshitela and APEDF President Onizine Yeshitela, who also gives every drive. And so just want to really salute the leadership of APEDF. As Chairman mentioned, President Onizine Yeshitela, the incredible work that she, does in leading these economic projects and that span, from not just St. Petersburg, Florida, and St. Louis, Missouri, and coast to coast inside the U.S. and increasingly in Africa, and helping to provide leadership, for putting economic work on the ground in everywhere that we are located and organizing. So salute APEDF President Onizine Yeshitela. And then we also have the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement President and host of the show, Black Power Talks, President Matsamela, also one of our sustainers. We also have the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru campaign located in San Diego, Chair Mwezi, who is also a sustainer of Black Power 96 Radio. Uhuru salute to Comrade Chair and Secretary General for the African People's Socialist Party, Mwezi, for being a sustainer. We also have Comrade MQ in Gainesville, Florida, sustainer for Black Power 96, regular contributor to the incredible institutions and to the Uhuru movement as a whole. Really want to salute Comrade MQ. We have Kasha in St. Petersburg, Florida, Denise in Silver Spring, Maryland, Comrade Emmanuel, who is the Northern Regional Representative for the African People's Socialist Party in Silver Spring, Maryland. We have Comrade Syrup C in the United Kingdom. We have Comrade Fofeet in St. Louis, Jamal in Minnesota, Melinda in Toronto, Canada, also one of the hosts, co-host for Diasporic Music with Comrade Jalali, or AKA Norman Richmond. We also have Tracy in Rialto, California, Alikia in Miami, Florida, Robert in St. Petersburg, Florida, Comrade Bakri in St. Louis, Director Aisha Fields, who is the director of the All African People's Development and Empowerment Project in Huntsville. We have Michael in Madison, Wisconsin, Sarah in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Jamie, Johan, and Comrade Janice in St. Petersburg, Florida. We have Brendan, Kitty, Allison, and Stephanie in St. Louis, Missouri. We have Virginia in Indiana, Renee in Philadelphia, Diane in Gainesville, Anne in Ecuador, and Janet in Washington, all sustainers. These supporters give a monthly donation to provide a stable base of funding for the station. And we encourage anyone who is not already a monthly sustainer, consider giving that kind of consistent, reliable support to the station. $5, $10, $25 or more a month. And yeah, so, consider becoming a sustainer for the radio station today. And we also want to shout out all the supporting members who have contributed during this drive. And there are too many to name. So if you did not hear your name on this list, we just want you to know that we do appreciate every contribution that you make. It really makes a difference. That's from Black Pride 96 Radio. So salute to all of the donors, the sustainers to Black Pride 96 Radio. And I want to now just go into and acknowledge those who have made contributions so far, getting us to our $2,000 goal, inching us there. So we have Comrade Lisa in Minneapolis with $100, kicked us off today. Crew Comrade Lisa. We have Comrade Leah in Minneapolis also with $100. All right, Minneapolis, bringing in the hundreds today. And just a reminder that those $100 contributions to the Omali Taught Me show will get you that special metal bookmark, Omali Taught Me bookmark. We have Comrade Penny, the chairwoman of the African People's Solidarity Committee, as well as one of the Uhuru Three, who's right now in St. Pete, but normally located in St. Louis, with a $100 contribution today. Uhuru Comrade Penny, thank you so much for your support. And I forgot to mention, Comrade Leah commented, Uhuru always proud to support Black Power 96. Uhuru Leah. We have Comrade Allison, who is a Black Power 96 sustainer in St. Louis with also a $100 contribution. Uhuru Comrade Allison says, the voice of the revolutionary African working class will never be silenced. Long live Black Power 96. Reparations now. Uhuru Comrade Allison. We have Comrade Siali, normally in St. Louis, but right now boots on the ground in St. Pete for the long hot summer with $25 contributions today. Uhuru Comrade Siali. We have our HOU campaign chair, Mwezi, who is also a Black Power 96 sustainer out in California with a $25 donation today, says hands off Black Power 96 radio. We have Comrade Raya in Chicago with a $25 contribution. Comrade Raya, a regular supporter of Black Power 96, Uhuru. We have Comrade Nyindu out in Fort Myers, Florida. Uhuru Comrade Nyindu, also a Black Power 96 sustainer with $20 today. Uhuru Comrade Nyindu. We also have Comrade Kitty in St. Louis, Missouri, who's renewing her $10 a month sustainer. And says, Uhuru to Black Power 96, renewing my monthly sustainer for the next year to keep the voice of the African working class on the air. Right on, Comrade Kitty. Be like Kitty, renew your sustainer membership today, become a sustainer today. And Comrade Wendy out in Oakland with a $25 contribution. Uhuru Comrade Wendy. We have Comrade Janice, who is, again, a BP96 sustainer out in St. Petersburg, claiming yet another one of those bookmarks with a $100 donation. Uhuru Comrade Janice. We have Comrade Robert in Collegeville, Pennsylvania with $20, says we have no choice but to win if we are to live. That's right, Comrade Robert. Thank you so much for your contribution. We have Carl, a new donor today. Thank you so much, Carl, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, for your $10 contribution today. Glad to have you on board. And becoming a listener to Black Power 96 Radio. We have Comrade Bakri, a BP96 sustainer, regularly in St. Louis, but also boots on the ground here in St. Petersburg, Florida. $25 donation today. And says, I salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, Deputy Chair Onizane Yeshitela, Akilé Anai, and the entire staff and volunteers of Black Power 96. And a special shout out to DJ Eddie, a keen anti-colonial visionary. Yes, gotta mention Comrade Eddie Malsby, the station manager for Black Power 96 Radio, 100% blind, but is the baddest station manager and DJ out there. And his slogan is, I don't see nothing, but I feel everything. So salute to Comrade Eddie Malsby, station manager for Black Power 96 Radio. We have Comrade Fofi, a BP96 sustainer out in St. Louis with $50. Uhuru Comrade Fofi, thank you for your continued support. Says the only way to defeat colonialism is through unity for liberation. Right on, Comrade Fofi. We have Comrade MQ, a BP96 sustainer out in Gainesville with $25 today. Thank you so much, Comrade MQ. Steady on the ball with the support. Thank you so much. We have Comrade Czar with $44 today. Comrade Czar, thank you so much for your contribution. We have Comrade Maureen in St. Louis with $100, claiming yet another bookmark. Stephanie, a BP96 sustainer out in St. Louis, $25 today. Uhuru Comrade Stephanie. Ruby, also a BP96 sustainer in St. Louis with $50 today. Uhuru Comrade Ruby. We have Sam, a new donor from New York City, New York, with $25. Uhuru Comrade Sam. We also have Kemwer Shabaka with $20 today. Uhuru, thank you so much, Kemwer. We also have Trent from Geismar, Louisiana with $25 today. Uhuru, Comrade Trent. And I should have known this was coming. We had Comrade MQ for a second donation today with $25. Uhuru, Comrade MQ, thank you so much. We have Bruce with $10 today. Uhuru, Comrade Bruce. We have Jesse in St. Louis with a $50 pledge. Uhuru, Comrade Jesse. Shakura, also Shakura, I believe in St. Louis, Comrade, with $25 today. Uhuru, Comrade Shakura, thank you so much for your contribution. We have Comrade Opa in Ohio with $47 today. Uhuru, Comrade Opa. We have Ayoka in Chicago with $30 today. Comrade Jacob with $20 and MQ, a third donation, $25. MQ is not playing. Y'all catch up to MQ and keep donating to blackpower96.org/donate. Thank you all so much for everybody who's made a contribution up to now. We have raised a total of $1,391. We're just $609 away from our $2,000 goal for the Omali Taught Me. We still have time here. I know we can make this goal. And if you have the full $600, you can just drop that right now. Go ahead and make that contribution to blackpower96.org/donate. Become a sustaining member. Consider giving monthly a consistent donation to Black Power 96 Radio. And again, download Black Power 96 Radio app so that you can listen to this radio station anywhere you are in the world. So we have just $609 to raise today, comrades, to get to our $2,000 goal. So, Chairman, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to say before we move into our announcements portion. And as we steady see these resources coming in, these donations, if there's anything that you wanted to add, but we can go into announcements.
I think, yeah, we might as well move into announcements. I just want us to keep our eyes on the developments, and we're reminded, we continue to be reminded of the fact that there is a single mode of production. And it's hard to understand otherwise why you see certain kind of phenomena happening all over the world at the same time. You have Kenya, uprising, then you have Kenya uprising while it was preparing to become an instrument of U.S. colonialism in Haiti, how Kenyan military, which is U.S. military. And this is another way that the whole system is stressing itself out, and it gives a different and extended definition of what Che Guevara talked about when he called for 2-3 mini-Vietnams during the struggle that the Vietnamese people were waging against the colonial domination by the United States, so this helps us to understand even better the significance of these struggles. The United States is bleeding. It's going to be something to behold, just in terms of how it's going to manage economically the disaster that's associated with spending all these billions and billions of dollars for weapons. It's not something people can eat or wear. They can't live in it, or they can't drive it. All these weapons, et cetera, that's going for production of arms, and even what they're doing, deploying forces in Haiti from Kenya, using these forces to attack Kenya, and to attack Haiti. And Haiti, of course, as we know, has been a sore spot for imperialism since the Haitian Revolution. And one of the reasons it was the most serious attack on the whole capitalist system, if you will, that's ever occurred. And that was because when after the Haitian Revolution, where the world economy was clearly organized around colonial slavery, and the Africans in Haiti made the determination that any slave anywhere in the world get to Haiti, you'll be free. And it inspired revolutionary struggle throughout the Americas, including by African people in the United States, Cuba, other places like that. So I just just let's keep attention on that and understand that you're looking at more or less the same connected phenomenon that's being given different definitions when we see, like things like Kenya and how Kenya now because it's trying to increase taxes on the people in Kenya, even as they make war against the people in the interests of the United States and Haiti. And then remember that Kenya is the place where Uhuru first achieved its significant political character through the Kenyan Land and Freedom Army called Mau Mau. And that legacy is still there, despite the fact that Ruto and other neocolonial puppets intend to serve imperialism and serve the colonizers. So we can make the announcements if you like, Comrade Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, Chairman. Thank you for that intervention as well. Because part of this crisis that we're summing up, and the evidence of that crisis is through these neo-colonial forces, that the colonizer weaponizes against us. And so just wanted to appreciate that intervention. And yeah, let's go ahead and move into announcements before we continue announcing those donations coming in. And again, go to black96.org, make that contribution, black96.org/donate. But let's take a look at our announcements so you can know what's all upcoming for the Uhuru Movement. Join the counteroffensive to stop the FBI attacks on the African People's Socialist Party and the African liberation struggle. Drop the charges against the Uhuru 3. Sign the petition. Sign the emergency response pledge for immediate text messages regarding the trial. Read all of the court documents and complete the Uhuru 3 trial commitment and volunteer form. Do all of that and more by going to handsoffuhuru.org. An important part of the fight back is happening Saturday, August 31st, 2024 in St. Petersburg, Florida. So make your plans now to be there for the Not One Step Backwards March and Rally, demanding hands off Chairman Omali Yeshitela and to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3. Sign up to march and become an endorser at handsoffuhuru.org/march. There is also a form to endorse and march for the rally that you can access through the handsoffahuru.org website. So again, Saturday, August 31st, August 31st, the Not One Step Backwards March and Rally, kicking us off leading up into the trial. And as going into our next announcements, we want you to stay for the trial from that march and calling all out for the Uhuru 3 trial, which is set for September 3rd in Tampa, Florida. We are just 58 days away from the trial and calling on all to sign up to attend the trial or volunteer. Sign up at handsoffahuru.org/trial to let us know that you will be there, and expect more information very soon about how we will wage this fight back on the ground. In fact, there's a meeting on tomorrow, and I'll mention that in just a moment. Make the demand to drop the charges on the Uhuru 3 and prepare to put the colonial state on trial. Again, go to handsoffahuru.org/trial to complete the commitment form. Tomorrow, Monday, July 8th at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition for an open meeting laying out the long, hot summer campaign. Hundreds of comrades and friends plan to come into St. Petersburg, Florida for the Not One Step Backwards mass rally in March on August 31st and to pack the courtroom for the Uhuru 3 trial of the century beginning September 3rd. The Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition members will also hear about the fight back against government attacks on the Uhuru Movement's radio station, Black Pride 96.3 FM, and updates from the Leonard Peltier Ad Hoc Committee. The future of the First Amendment and anti-colonial free speech is on the line, but when we fight, we win. Sign up to attend the meeting at handsoffahuru.org/register. On Wednesday, July 10th at 6:30 p.m. Central Time, the African People's Solidarity Committee will host a study and discussion on the document Tactics and Strategy for Black Liberation by Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Calling on white people, come to this study to learn more about the African People's Socialist Party, its more than 52-year history of putting this document into practice, and how white people can stand in principled solidarity with the Black liberation movement. Participants can attend in person at the Uhuru Solidarity Center in St. Louis and online. Register to reserve your spot at apscuhuru.org/study. And save the date for Saturday, July 27, 2024. Join the Hands Off Uhuru Fight Back Coalition on the 2nd anniversary of the brutal FBI and police raids on 7 homes and offices of the Uhuru Movement in 2 cities. Hear messages of support and solidarity from numerous organizations and individuals who have stood with Chairman Omali Yeshitela and the Uhuru Movement. Register to attend this online event at handsoffuhuru.org/victory. Make sure you like and subscribe to the Burning Spear TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study. Uhuru Tours and Speakers Bureau is an institution of the African People's Socialist Party that coordinates events and tours for Chairman Omali Yeshitela and other party speakers and leaders. Book Chairman Omali and other Uhuru Movement speakers for your campus or organization now. Email info@uhurutours.com or call 727-914-3621. And for more events not mentioned here, go to theburningspear.com/events to see everything happening inside the Uhuru Movement, see what you can be a part of, become a member of the African People's Socialist Party by going to apspuhuru.org. So, comrade, that concludes our announcements. I want to go back to our totals, see how much we've got in, and also acknowledge our incredible donors today. We have Comrade Trancoso with a pledge of $100 today. Uhuru Comrade Trancoso. We have Comrade President Matsamela Odom, a sustainer of Black Power 96 radio, as mentioned, with a $25 donation today. And we have Comrade Matum out in Philly with $100. Uhuru Comrade Matum. That brings our total up to $1,616. We are just $384 shy of our $2,000 goal today. And I know we can make this goal. A reminder about those givebacks. Can we get those givebacks up on the screen again? I just want to show people what it is that they'll receive, when they donate to Black Power 96 Radio. And yeah, let's see those givebacks. So I mentioned, okay, there we go. Our special givebacks for all of our supporters for Black Power 96 Radio. We have all donors receiving this custom BP96 magnet. So if you've made any contribution from the start of July or at any point during this program, you'll receive this custom BP96 magnet. And our next give back is for those who give $60 today or become a $5 a month sustainer. You will get this vinyl record BP96 custom coaster. So that's $60 today, or become a $5 a month sustainer. That's just $5 every month going to your favorite radio station. Next. We also have for our next give back $100 today. Or become a $10 a month sustainer, you will get this cooling headband. Again, it is hot outside. We are going to sweat up here. So this cooling headband, helps to prevent, this from happening. And then not only that, but it's a Black Power 96 cooling headband. So it gets even cooler because Black Power 96 is sported on it. So again, $100 today or $10 a month sustainer, you can get this Black Power 96 cooling headband. And we have a special give back for those who donate during this program, who've donated $100. If you have not donated, if you donated today, but it's not a total of $100 yet, and you really want this metal bookmark, the Omali Taught Me metal bookmark, then you go ahead and increase your donation to go ahead and get this $100 or to get this metal bookmark, the Omali Taught Me metal bookmark. So $100 during this show, this program specifically, can get you this Omali Taught Me bookmark. So just think about that. And then our last give back, $300 today, or become a new $25 a month sustainer. You will get this Black Power 96 t-shirt. And you can have all of this, all of the give backs that we've just mentioned today by donating $300 today or becoming a $25 a month sustainer. So these are all the incredible give backs that we want to give you to show our appreciation for your support to Black Power 96 Radio. So let's see what we have coming in. We have Comrade Chimaranga with $10 today. Who Comrade Chimaranga? Oh, and Comrade Raya, who became a new $15 a month sustainer, bringing our total to $1,806 with only $194 left to raise. We are right there, comrades. The finish line is right here, and we are so close. Salute to Comrade Raya for becoming a sustainer. That's what I am talking about. You can be like Raya. You can be like our sustainers and making that contribution on a consistent monthly basis to your favorite radio station to keep Black Power 96 on air. So again, we have only $194 left to raise. towards our $2,000 goal this morning. If you have that $100 to drop today, if you want to increase your donation amount to go ahead and get some of those special give backs, go ahead and make that contribution right now. And again, to get that bookmark in particular, it has to be during the Omali Taught Me program. So go ahead and make your contribution. We have just a couple of minutes here. And, before we officially, close down. So let's get this $194 in before we officially close today's study. And Chairman, this is the point now where I would turn it over to you, to make, your final presentation or remarks. And we're going to get the rest of these resources before we hit the top of the hour. So, Comrade Chairman.
Well, thank you very much, Comrade. I was fiddling with my phone, attempting to make $100 contribution. I have to have somebody, help me manage this, but it's really interesting that there's a promotion here. When I went to Black Power 96, there's an ad that's there. Did you see it? Stand with Ukraine, save peace in the world. So yeah,
We'll check that out because that's definitely not ours.
that's sitting right on top of the Black Power 96. Yeah. So anyway, there, I'm put me down for $100. Yeah, and I'll make that happen before the day's out. Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you so much, Chairman. Again, a sustainer to Black Pride 96 Radio already, and making this contribution. Really want to appreciate your donation, your leadership, your donation, your steadfast support for this radio station. So that brings us closer to our goal. We only have $94 left to raise, comrades. $94 left to raise before we close out today's study. So we're not going to wrap this up until we reach this $2,000 goal today. And I have to double check what you saw, Chairman, because I'm not seeing that. And I'm looking on the computer, you're looking on the phone, so sometimes those views are a little bit different. So we'll definitely check that out.
I went to, I don't know, Black Power. I just went to Google, Black Power 96, listen to live radio, anyway, online radio box, and then Stand with Ukraine, save peace in the world, and then Black Power 96. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely check that out. But thank you again, Chairman, for your contribution. $100 today. We have let's see. Oh, so stuff is coming in. Okay, we have Comrade Wendy who says she's gonna do $75 more so she can get that bookmark. So Uhuru Comrade Wendy, right on. She wants that bookmark. And we have Comrade, we have the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, who is donating $50 today towards the Omali Taught Me study, or the Omali Taught Me Sunday study goal of $2,000. Uhuru comrades and Impedum and President Matsamela for that contribution. And also check out Black Power Talks on Black Power 96 Radio as well. Oh, there's more. We have Comrade Mwezi who dropped $94. Comrade Chair Mwezi. She's like, we are going to get there. And we have also Comrade Aisha, Director Aisha, with $10 today. Uhuru, Comrade Aisha. So let's see, am I missing anyone? No, I'm not missing anyone. Okay, comrades. So we have made $2,035. We have exceeded our goal by $35 today. So salute to all of you for making that possible. And don't feel like this is the end of making your contribution. It does not have to be. We have 3 more minutes here, but also we have the rest of July to make a contribution to Black Pride 96 Radio. They are in the middle of their July member drive. So you can at any point become a donor, sustainer to Black Pride 96 Radio, and to also encourage family and friends to support and this radio station by donating to Black Pride 96 as well. Same methods, blackpride96.org/donate through the Cash App with hashtag Black Pride 96, or through the mail to Black Pride 96 at 1245 18th Avenue South, St. Petersburg, Florida, 33705. We have Comrade Janine in Oakland who just donated $25. All right, Comrade Zai out in San Diego with $10. Uhuru, comrades. That brings us to $2,070 with $70 over our goal So, comrades, again, you do not have to stop. I don't want you to feel like you have to stop as we get to the end here. Again, you have all month of July to support Black Power 96 Radio. And don't forget those incredible give backs that you will receive that shows our appreciation to all of you for making that contribution, for supporting this radio station, for supporting the work and programs of the African People's Education and Defense Fund. And wanted to send a final salute to President Onizine Yeshitela again, just the incredible visionary and, worker behind these economic programs that span, really spanning the world and, just putting the liberated African economy in possession of African workers. I mean, that is extremely powerful, and just want to salute that the leadership of APEDF. So, yes, that I think I'll use that to for my closing statements. So comrades, looks like we have raised a total of $2,170. And with having gone over our goal of $170 today. I want to thank the Omali Taught Me Show team for doing it yet again. All of you, the audience, for participating in this study, for making a contribution. Omali Taught Me has done it again, making $2,000 goal towards the overall $10,000 goal for the month of July for Black Power 96 Radio. So salute to all of you. Salute to all of our listeners and the Omali Taught Me Show team, from the AV to the chat moderation, making sure that we can, pull this all together. Want to salute all of you as well. And again, thank you for tuning into today's study. Whether you are watching on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or Twitter, we are so glad to have you on with us. And I, of course, have to salute the brilliant leadership of our chairman, Omali Yeshitela. This is the one they don't want you to hear. They don't want you to have this kind of analysis that we've been able to deal with today. They want to keep that locked away from the people. And so, but you are participating and fighting back and getting this out there in the world, and getting the leadership of the chairman out in the world, which is so needed. So salute the leadership of Chairman Omali Yeshitela. Make sure to follow the chairman on Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, and Instagram, and subscribe to the Burning Spur TV on YouTube to catch every episode of the Omali Taught Me Sunday Study. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, comrades. Uhuru, we are winning.
Vanguard up.
Relentless.